Big fights, how do you make them? Like, how do you make that happen? If you're a promoter and you want to do a great job with promotion, how do you create a star? Have we had promoters create stars? Is that even a thing? Do you create an environment and put people out there, then the crowd decides, and then your job is to actually just bring the two best storylines together? That's generally how it's done. I will agree with that. But the question at hand is a very fun one. I made a piece a couple of days ago. I was given great praise. I was called by two executives of two different MMA companies over the theory and the idea that had to do with there's more important things than having the best fighters. And I was asked to elaborate on that, and I did in a private manner. But I also didn't know it was fascinating. I didn't know that they would be interested in it. I didn't know you guys would find that interesting. But historically within fighting is a very fun thing to look back and to understand. People used to have a very good fighter in their village as part of their tribe. It was very important you had a good fighter. Because if others came in that could fight better, they would take your village, they would take your life. It was a very, very big deal. And over time, as we became more civilized and we started to have policing, we started to have laws, and there began to become a surplus in food, that didn't happen as much, and fighting became less important to the point where we now have sport fighting like we have today, where if you lose, you're going to have a little bit of money and a little bit of prestige taken away from you. And that is a vastly different thing. And at some point along the journey, around the turn of the 1900s, as a matter of fact, a guy threw a belt out there. It didn't used to always be for belts. There was a period of nothing, and they gave the medals a try. They went to trophies. There's been certificates. There's been extra large checks. There's been a number of things, and belt seemed to work the most. But the question still comes is, what are you fighting for? Now, I do not care for professional wrestling. I hear from you guys constantly he's a big pro wrestling fan. I don't care for it enough that I'm taking the time to let you know I don't care for it. But when you saw a cage match back when pro wrestling was a thing, it was a bigger deal, wasn't it? What about if you saw a hair match? Did you ever see one of those? Two guys would wrestle and the loser would get his head shaved. Do you remember that? And it would draw. This would be a main event. People would be talking about it. This is what the crowd came to see. You ever seen a loser leave town match? Two guys are going to wrestle. Whoever gets pinned, 1, 2, 3, boom, he's out here. He's got no way to make a living. He's going to leave. He's going to leave the industry for a period of, and then fill in the blanks. Muhammad Ali even had a fight one time. It was out of the country. And he said, if I lose to this guy, I'll fly home tomorrow. I mean, like, there's things. What do you call those? Why do you think that those happen, and why do you think those work? Now, as I give a pause, and you smart marks that are following along as Professor Chael leads class, you're going to say they're called gimmicks. And they are called gimmicks, but why do they work was the question. They work because of the stakes. So somebody figured out, since we're not actually fighting here, we're not fighting by the terms that people used to have to fight for. And it's not as important, and it doesn't mean what it used to mean. But I have got athletes, I'm one of them, that stopped everything in life that they were doing, put it on hold, would have given every worldly possession back to have this trinket that some promoter at one point threw out and told us was important, called a belt. What promoters don't realize is how important stakes are. And you want the title to be the big one. Anywhere I bring my belt, anywhere I bring this title, any town that I go to, the people are going to line up. I'm going to fill the tent up. I'm going to sell all the popcorn and all the cups of beer. You want it to be that way, but it's not true. And a lot of times you can't get a title and you can't get a champion, at least not one with any validity. So you'd like your main event to be able to draw and sell. Any town, any territory you want to go to, anywhere you want to drag, sell some tickets and put on an attraction. But it's not true. And those things can be helpful, and you got to cap the night off, and whoever goes last, and you got to call it a main event, you got to put your attention somewhere, and a poster is only so big, and you can only put a couple of guys on there. There'd be no sense to put somebody that wasn't your main event. Like, there's things that come with it, but grudge trumps all of them easily. Without question, grudge is bigger than title or main event, but you can't just manufacture that. So what do you do? How do you have the stakes? What do you believe is the most important fight ever? Why, you say it has to be the two best fighters. It has to be the two best fighters. While you say that, and I ask you, if you're so smart on the sport, where do you think Forrest Griffin and Stephan Bonner rates? In terms of significance and importance, it was not for a title that I've had to hear is so coveted. It wasn't on pay-per-view. There wasn't a personal grudge that I keep telling you is so important, and it didn't involve the best fighters. But where do you believe that it rates in terms of significance? And it wasn't just the action. It wasn't just that it turned in to such a fun match. It had big stakes. Those guys were fighting for their career. They were fighting for a career. I had done a television show. The ratings were so bad, they canceled the entire series. And it was called The Apprentice. And they couldn't figure out, they thought it had just ran its course. This is what the executive said. It's just ran its course. Let's just cancel it and never come back. And what they didn't understand then, and they don't understand now, is it had not ran its course. It didn't have stakes. In every other season of this show called The Apprentice, somebody got a job. An actual career, an actual job, an actual mentorship. And they wanted it. They wanted it very badly. And the other people did not. And the one that I did was called Celebrity Apprentice, where it was just an attention. It was just a game. There was no job. There was no mentorship. There was no job site. There was no contract. And all of the people that lost go back to their drunken good times of lives because they were all famous and rich anyway. It lacked the stakes. So after Forrest and Stephan got done, it was a very good feel-good moment. You both get a contract. It was the right thing to do, and it was the right thing at that moment. And as much as we'd like to tell history that the reason there's never been a finale of an Ultimate Fighter that was as highly rated as that one is because it was the first, it was the best. As much as we want to rewrite history, there was no opportunity for any of them to outdraw because none of them had the same stakes. As soon as they both got a contract, it doesn't have the same stakes. It's why the hair match matters. Not, you think it's a big deal? Do you really think about yourself? I mean, I always tell fans, the worst person to ask what they want is the fan. The fan he doesn't know what he wants. When you tuned in for a hair match for professional wrestling, when that was an exciting and amazing moment, you're going, oh my God, and you're laughing. You've been to barbershops before. Did you do that? Did you do that with the guy in front of you? Did you show up early to the barbershop because it was so entertaining? Do you just like to see someone get their hair cut? No. It was the stakes. It mattered. Something was going to happen. Same with the loser leave town. They did my car match out here in Oregon one time. Roddy Piper versus Playboy Buddy Rose. Playboy had a pink Cadillac. Piper pinned him 1, 2, 3. Piper took his car. Actually drove it around Portland. They had to do a rematch just so he could get his car back. But it had stakes. Those kinds of things are interesting. So what will you do? There was a belief once upon a time, and beliefs are fine. Everything starts with a theory. You do an experiment. You make a bet. But there was a belief that if you could pay enough money on a card, if you could pay somebody enough money, that in and of itself would bring in the attention. The media would come, people would tune in. It's like watching somebody win the lottery. It'd be this amazing thing. There was an effort made on a battleship. They were actually going to call it battleship. And the fight was going to be on a battleship. So it was sovereign territory. So they'd come with their own rules. And they were going to pay $1 billion. It's one of these things where you roll your eyes and just go, how do you possibly think you're going to get that back? How do you think you're going to recoup that? Moreover, how is the guy that wins that and risks everything to go on your little ship so you can do sovereign water, break laws that were on the land, so you're going to go on this boat? How is that guy going to get paid $1 billion? Where would that money possibly come from? The promoter was so sure it would bring it in, right? I mean, just really stupid ideas, but we have these all the time. And if you have this great idea that I'm going to give $1 billion, if you have that, and then you pull off the event and you give somebody the $1 billion, but it didn't bring the media and it didn't bring the attention, would you do it again? And again and again? Would you keep on doing it? At first it was an experiment, fine. Everything is, but now it's not. You have your answer. And why is that not working? Why is that not clever? It sure seems like it is. It sure seems headline worthy. Well, you'd be looking in the wrong direction. There's still no stakes. There's still no stakes. If you were to give a guy $1 billion and he had the most beautiful show and it was what every fighter dreamed to be, and you gave that to him, and you wanted the attention, you have to make it very clear to the audience and to the rest of the guys, you will be released. If you come through this process, I'm going to pay you to show, I'm going to take good care of your market value, I'm going to pay you to win, quarterfinal, semifinal, however we're going to do it. Should you win, there's going to be a bonus on top of everything else. Like, you're never going to be slighted. You're not taking a huge risk, but there is one risk. If you come through this and you don't make it, you're gone. And all of a sudden, you now have stakes. All of a sudden, the one thing that you missed, that you never knew was important, you never knew why they did the hair match. You thought you'd like to see somebody get shaved, but when Chael told you you've never gone to the barbershop and been all giddy, you thought, yeah, you're right. I guess I don't really care if people get their hair cut or not. And the one thing that Forrest and Bonner had, as much as you want to say it was two guys standing on their feet and they were banging on a Wednesday night on a network called Spike, as much as you want to say that and you want it to be true, the one thing that fight had was stakes, a career, a contract. That's the one thing that's never been duplicated. The rewards have been given there, and rewards have even gotten bigger over time, and the prize has even gotten better and more important. But the failure did not. And if the failure is anywhere remotely close to the prize, right? You got two guys on level playing field. One guy goes up. You don't have anything. This guy can go up, and he can go up, and he can go up. You don't have anything. There's got to be a separation. And the one that didn't get it has got to go the other way, as tough as that might sound. Otherwise, you don't have stakes. Otherwise, you just have a Celebrity Apprentice type situation that gets pulled off the air with a room full of executives that to this day have no idea why it didn't work.